Hello, this is my first Blender tutorial and it's an introduction. I'm going to go through just the basics of Blender 2.57. To get Blender 2.57 you first need to go to blender.org, and then down over here will be a little box with an arrow, green arrow pointing into it that says download now. Click that. Download the installer for your version of whatever operating system you have, and it's a basic installation. There's nothing too hard, and you're going to want to finish that installing and then start up. Okay, so you've installed Blender. I'm going to do a few comparisons between Blender 2.57 and the older Blender 2.49. Let's get that started. So the first thing you see when you start Blender 2.5 is this. Actually, no, not this. You'll see this. Sorry, I made some modifications to my basic scene. This thing with the chameleon type thing is the splash screen, and that has some places. It has some links to the Blender website, places on it, and it has recent files that you've used. I've been working on a kitchen scene. There's the final thing. But that's the basic kitchen scene that I've been making, and we won't be making anything quite that difficult, but I'm still trying to decide on what we'll do for our final render, our final project in this series. But anyway, when you start, you're going to see that. The next thing you'll see is the 3D modeling viewport, probably. From here, up in the corner, down to over here, is all the 3D viewport. And that's where everything you make is going to be. You're just going to start out with just a basic cube. You've got your camera, this pyramid thing with a little triangle on top, and your light and your basic cube. By the way, Shift A lets you add meshes. A mesh is just your basic objects. There's the plane, which is a two-dimensional square object, and there's cube, circle, two-dimensional circle, UV sphere, which is a sphere, an icosphere, which is made out of triangles. You probably made one of those in geometry class if you ever did. Cylinder and a cone. There's also a few other things on here, like the monkey. This is Suzanne. And torus and a grid. Oh yes, before I go on further, with Blender, you're going to have your right hand on the mouse and your left hand on the keyboard. If you can't figure out which one's your left hand, which one's your right hand, Blender's not for you. Down here you have your timeline, and that's for making animations and such. Blender 2.49 was oops. Blender 2.49 was a little different. Alright, sorry, I was distracted for a moment. Anyway, Blender 2.49 had a little different setup. It was less dark and ominous. but don't let that bother you, because Blender 2.5 is actually not too difficult. Blender 2.49, sorry, keep doing that. You had your panels down here, which are where you could add your modifiers and materials and stuff. Well, in Blender 2.5 series, all of that stuff is over here. Actually, I better add cube again. So you can add your modifiers here. Modifiers are things that modify it, I guess. Not much better way to explain that. Materials are over here. They're the little circle-y thingy, sort of. Textures are the checkered pattern. This is the object constraints, so like tracking and things like that, parenting, difficult stuff. And this is the where the object data, where you have its groups and stuff, all that's located. The world panel is the little miniature world. That's where you can add environment and lighting, so you add light coming from the environment. You can add your background in here. You can make a blend, real sky. Anyway, you can also add indirect lighting in here. Indirect lighting is a new feature of Blender 2.57. It wasn't in Blender 2.49. And that just allows light rays to like bounce off of objects, like what happens in real life. That's why rooms are so light. And you can also add a mist and stars, which are convenient for space scenes and other things. Over here you have your object tools panel, which is where you can do smooth shading. Looks weird with a cube like that. You can do some other stuff with it. T hides and brings that out. N is your other panel that shows the location of it. When you're in edit mode, by the way, edit mode is where you can change where the vertices and such are. You get into that by pressing tab. In edit mode, you can use it to show the normals. Normals are basically which direction the faces are pointing. So you can see those little lines, little blue lines there pointing out. So that means that if I take a picture right now, if I were to render it right now, that I would be able to see that nicely. It wouldn't look weird or anything. Right here is your object selection area. You can select objects from there. I usually just use the 3D viewport. By the way, in the 3D viewport, if you've used Blender 2.49, you know this, but whereas it's not quite so simple. If you click with your left mouse button, that's the one you use normally, it's going to bring that little red and white circly thingy with crosshairs. That is the 3D cursor. And to put that back into the center of the main grid, you want to press Shift-C. And that'll bring it out. Or you can also press Shift-S and click cursor to center. Now, to select an object, you're going to use the right click. Right clicks on my screen will show up as blue, left clicks will show up as red. But you select things using the right using right clicking. So that's your basic Blender. Oh yes, rendering. Can't forget rendering. If you press, oh yeah. Also, there's a couple basic views that you can use. Currently, this is in perspective. People see things in perspective. That's just the way we see. But if you press 5 on your numpad, it will go to orthographic, which is straight lines and there's no distortion. The one on your number pad will go to front, which you can see if it's in orthographic or perspective up here. And front, it will show you which side it's on. So 1 is front, 3 is right, and 7 is the top. Those are your basic ones. And 0 goes to your camera. So if I were to press 0 and select the camera, you select the camera by clicking up here by that little dotted line. You can scroll in using your middle mouse wheel. And if I were just to move that, you can see it moves the camera itself. When in the world, in the 3D modeling area, if you hold down your middle mouse button, you can move around. It moves a little bit weirdly. It's hard to get used to at first, but you'll learn it fairly quickly. If you go like that, if you were to go in the middle and drag down, it would move straight up. And if you were to go up, it would move down. If you were to go over here, move down, it would rotate it. It's a little bit hard to get used to. You'll get used to it. But go to 0, and you can see you've got your cube there. And your light is up here somewhere. I can't click on it right now. Oh, there we go. I have it selected. And if you were to hit F12 now, you would see this. Just a basic cube in a picture. Not too exciting. But in the next few tutorials, we'll be learning how to do something else. I haven't totally decided what we're going to be making yet, but you'll see in the next few tutorials. The next few might be a little bit delayed because I have to actually make the scene first. That's really all